Hello and welcome to Conversations with the Voice of Reason. I'm your host, Benjamin Boyce, and today's conversants are Alasdair Gunn, aka Angus Fox, and Josie from Parents with Inconvenient Truths About Trans. In this conversation, we talk about the inception of Parents with Inconvenient Truths About Trans, otherwise known as PITT, and how it is purely a collection of stories from the point of view of parents whose children have identified into a transgender identity and the effect that that has on families. On the 14th of August, PITT is releasing their first published collection of stories, and if you are a parent or know someone who is a parent of a trans-identified youth, these stories provide a range of experience with how parents and families have been affected by this issue. Do check the description for links to more resources. Without further ado, here is Josie and Alasdair.
So what happened was I had joined a boys group because
you identified as a boy?
No, there were a lot of stories about girls, like Lisa Littman's paper was all about girls, and we were a bunch of parents with boys, and we're like, well, what about the boys? So I saw on there was a site called, what's the name of the site where we met?
Yeah, the critical resource.
Yeah. So there was a posting, is anyone interested in joining a boys group? So I responded and I joined the boys group. And so we decided that we were going to become activists and to try and get boys on the map because we felt like they were being ignored. This cohort. And I decided to write a paper, like a one sheet. And I had seen Alasdair's notice that he would help do any graphic art. So I contacted him. And that's how I met Alasdair. But he also knew the mom who was running the boys group. So he helped do the graphics for this one sheet. And then Alasdair and I started talking and thinking,
it was something that, it was irreversible damage. We were basically trying to get people to read Irreversible Damage, weren't we? The graphic design I did. It was like a little flyer for,
we did
for Irreversible
that's
Damage.
right. We first did a flyer. And then we also did the one sheet where you put SOS, Save Our Boys.
Oh, yeah.
Save Our Sons.
Save Our Sons, yeah.
And
SOS would be, Save Our Boys would be something different. SOB.
That's why we went with SOS. That's right. And then Alasdair and I decided that maybe if we talked to some men, like men's group or something, they would think, oh, this is happening to boys, and maybe they would help us. So I found this one group that would publish things. And I said, what if we wrote a piece and we see if they would publish it? So Alasdair and I wrote a piece called My Son Doesn't Want to Be a Man. And they published it and it did really well. And then we went, oh, well, that worked. Let's keep writing. And then I don't know when you came up with the Quillette. It was right after that or before.
I don't know. It's all in a mix, in my mind. But it was at the same-ish time. And then kind of what happened is that the more we went along and more people joined in, and then there were lots of different people writing. So we had like a little spreadsheet to make sure we weren't...
You and the mom who runs a boys group decided to do a boys blitz.
Right, so we called this the Boys Blitz, which is like, let's get as many people to write to as many different outlets, like minor outlets mainly. We weren't very ambitious, I don't think. Well, we were appropriately ambitious, but at the time, no one was talking about it.
And then we embedded Alasdair in our boys group, so he could help us write our stories. And we got them published, like in MercatorNet, a lot of Medium, self-publishing and things like that. And then one of the moms got her pieces taken down from Medium. And she said to me, well, let's start a Substack and we'll put them up on that. And so I said, oh, okay, I'll do that. So I started the Substack, and we put her pieces up, and then we started publishing. I think we started with one. She had like 8 stories, I think. And then we put like the one sheet up, and then we started publishing like twice a week. And then we asked our friends, will you write something? And they did. And so we thought we were just going to publish stories about boys. And then, but it was taking off. Like, people were subscribing, and I was tweeting it out. And then we got moms.
Isn't that funny? We did literally have this whole thing of like, should we include girl parents? Now it's like this whole massive movement thing. It's like, but back then it was really like, oh, how do we get noticed? Is it too broad if we include girl parents? But yeah.
So this is what turned into PITT then, just this kind of just publishing stories.
We had the name.
Okay.
And the mom who did that, we have never met in person, so we're still working together. It's been 2 years. She lives in New York. I live in California, and we work really well together. She edits and I do everything else. And we just added another parent to help edit, and she's a parent of a girl, so we thought we could get another perspective. And so we were publishing for like a month or so, and then I asked a mom I know of a daughter if she would publish, if she had a piece, because she had told me she wrote something. And I said, so I published it. And that's sort of when we started getting noticed, because there's so many parents of daughters. And then and then a mom sent me her piece, and it went viral. It was called
which one was that?
Therapist, You Were Wrong.
Okay.
And that got us on the map. And then we started getting so many pieces sent to us that we had to go to publishing every day. And that's how Alasdair helped us start PITT.
It's so strange. Yeah, everything. I'd forgotten half of what you said, but yeah, that's all correct.
Yeah. And then we noticed that Jack Turbine had joined our Substack, and we got really scared. So I talked to Stella, and she said she would take us under the umbrella of GenSpect. And basically, it's just an email. They don't contribute. They don't look at our pieces. It's just an email. But we feel safe. We were worried we'd get doxxed or something. And
okay, so Jack Turbine is a medical professional who is very pro child transition. He treats everybody that he disagrees with as if it's puberty and blocks them on Twitter, and then goes around, and he's a very ideological. He's probably in bed with some of these companies too. I mean, there's rumors about him something. So him signing up for your letter kind of spooked you guys, because maybe he's a part of like this network of activists that would try to destroy your lives or publish your names, and largely, more or less, we should open this topic, largely the parents of transition, the trans skeptical parents of trans-identified youth are largely anonymous. It's probably pretty obvious why, because this is a very private, I guess, phenomena in your life. You don't want to like just spill your dirty laundry out into the open, but also the parents of trans-identified youth who are skeptical of this, those kids could sever all relationships with you, because it is very, this movement is very socially sensitive, and it's already seeded with activism, and if your parents standing against this thing, you're encouraged actively by the trans community to cut them off. And it's highly embarrassing too, especially if the kid ends up detransitioning, then it's just all this dirty laundry. So that's a broad overview. But Josie, as a parent working with parents, I'm just curious about the lay of the land of these trans skeptical parents and
well, the problem is that nobody believes you. Like all of us in blue states, your friends, your family, they just think you're a transphobe or bigot. And so you have to be really careful who you talk to. You don't get a lot of support, which is why we keep it secret. You try it out on one person and they basically think you're the worst person in the world. And then you're afraid to tell anybody. And then you see all the news media and, your kids are at school completely affirmed. The doctors, everyone you thought you trusted, you can no longer trust. There's nowhere safe. Camps aren't safe, summer camps. Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, schools, doctors, therapists, you're all alone in this. And that's why the parent group started, because then we had other parents to talk to. I mean, it took me 6 months to find anything critical about this. I couldn't find anything. But in my gut, and my husband as well, we just knew this wasn't, we're like, no, we're not buying this. Even though the gender doctor had said, which we accidentally went to because we thought, oh, he would straighten this out. And that's not what they do. They say, oh, would you rather have a dead son or a live daughter? And we didn't buy it. It didn't make sense. He even tried to explain what trans was, but he couldn't. He tried to explain it like gay. And we're like, what? That doesn't make any sense. So we were skeptics. And once I found the information 6 months later, after my son told us, everything opened up to me. I couldn't believe it. I just knew it. But then it helped you not feel alone and not think you're crazy. And so there are a lot of parent groups. And we need each other. And there's groups, locally, like Parents of ROGD Kids has a group where they get people in different cities to get together to meet in person. And then there's online groups. And then Stella O'Malley started GDSN, where she did these therapeutic parent sessions, which were really helpful. And then you met all these people, all these parents who were in the same boat you were. And now they're all parent-led groups. They're still there, and they're really helpful. And the reason we started... Go ahead.
No, go on. I interrupted you. You said, and I'll say my thing. I'll remember.
So the reason we're really glad that we continued with PITT is because when this came upon us, we couldn't find anything, and we wanted, if we couldn't help our own kids, we wanted to help other families. We didn't want other parents to go through what we went through. We were hoping that they could find the access early, just like how Gen Spec started relatively at the same time.
So what I was going to add is that, just from my point of view, Josie was the second parent I interviewed. So I went into this boys group and I said, and then we had this Quillette idea and I did these interviews, and the Quillette idea must have been quite early on in, because when I interviewed you, it was only the second time I'd seen you, and it was the first time we'd ever spoken face-to-face alone. We did see one another briefly in a meeting, maybe once or twice, but the first long conversation we had was when I interviewed you. And I'd say what happened is that it was Josie who went back to the rest of the parents and said, yeah, he's fine. And that's when other people started talking to me. You were the first one. You weren't the first parent, but I don't want to name the first parent, but I don't think she quite had people were waiting for somebody who knew what they were doing to say, yeah, this is fine. And that was you. That was my recollection of it. It was you. You went back to the group and sort of said, this is fine. And then came various other people as well. So it was kind of so you're the first person I met who was literally told by a therapist, you can either have a dead son or a trans daughter. You're the first person I met who told me about the whole gender clinic thing from a first person perspective. Like, I was in this clinic and this is what happened. And we talked in quite a lot of depth about, I remember being really interested, like, who are these people? So you were kind of, and I was asking you all these questions about the gender therapist and stuff. So it was kind of really early in my experiences. I could feel there's a lot of knowledge that came from this first person.
Yeah, we were completely blindsided, which is what you called my story.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of parents are blindsided. It's because you have no idea, like, it's inconceivable that overnight your child could be the opposite sex when they had zero gender issues as a kid. And we did a PITT survey where we had, I think, 2,000 parents filled out the survey, and I would say 75% said their kids were conforming. They were not non-conforming kids. They were just completely conforming. So
Gender conforming, like
boyish
boys, girlish girls. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Was, out of interest, you might not remember, was there a sex difference? Or was it basically 75% boys and 75% girls?
It was like 30% boys and 35% boys and 65% girls.
Okay, but then within, so the whole thing of like 75% of them were gender conforming, is that true of the boys as well? Is like within all the boys, is it like roughly the same proportion, 75% gender conforming?
Well, we didn't break it down that way, but
okay.
One of the moms, yeah, I would say so, because one of the moms in our boys group did surveys and found that the boys were 85% had an IQ over 130. They were all
gifted,
quirky, nerdy,
spectrum.
boys.
Yeah.
Spectrum,
yeah.
Huh. So if that's the case, if just, I guess, speaking broadly from the point of view of parents, or on behalf of the parents of boys, and so broadly speaking, you're already dealing with kind of a weird kid. You know, he's an outlier in one way or another. So you've already kind of adjusted your parent style, and it probably even causes you maybe to be a little bit more engaged and more aware of the child. And so out of nowhere comes this gender identification, and I'm wondering, like, I don't know if it's possible to speak broadly or to speak personally about how one adapts to the boy, who's already kind of special and, special or kind of different. And then all of a sudden on top of that is this whole other identification. Is that fantasy? How do you start to grapple with that? And then what, in your own case, Josie, you took him to the doctor expecting that the medical professionals would help you sort this thing out. But how do you engage with the kid, and what are some of the tools that are the methodologies that the parents have come up with over the time to talk with the boys, specifically to the boys? How are the boys treated? How do the boys need to be treated?
You mean once they decide they're trans?
Yeah, once that trans identification comes over them. Well,
I probably did everything wrong. And you judge yourself, you ruminate about what you could have done differently. But because I didn't know anything about it, I think parents today have it easier because they probably heard that this is happening, maybe. And so they kind of are aware of it, where we were like, what? And I was upset that he was listening to the internet over us, where maybe I could have been more empathetic, is what I always worry about. But I was like holding the line, like, nope, that's not what's going on. And it didn't really work out for us because, my son is now estranged. So I don't have any answers, because you could do the exact same thing. Two parents could do the exact same thing and have different results. So there's just no way to know this.
Yeah.
But my son actually was pretty normal, I thought. I didn't see any weirdness. He had lots of friends. He only hung out with boys, and it just sort of, everything kind of happened all at the same time. Like, he got cut from a sports team. He stopped hanging around his friend group from middle school because they were doing drugs. And then he was sort of, his friend from Boy Scouts decided to transition. And then that's the next thing I know, my son is deciding this. Okay. So just, I think everything happened, and then COVID hit. So I think everything kind of just happened at the same time. And
how old was he? That was like 16?
15,
right?
15.
15.
And he's now 19.
Yeah, because I've known you I've known you 3 years.
Huh.
Yeah.
So even within the parent groups, as they exist right now, there are parents who are coming in who are just discovering this, parents who have lived with this for a couple of years, and then parents who the whole process has already happened, and either the identity is resolved in one way or the other. Either estrangement has happened or another. So you guys, even though it's kind of a new phenomenon, there's already like kind of like a stratification of where these parents are in this.
Right. And then there's people that try, like we have different groups. Like I'm just in a boys group. I'm not in a overall group. Well, I guess I am, but mostly I communicate with the boys group, and new parents come in and other parents give them advice. Mm-hmm. I kind of stopped giving advice because my strategy didn't work. So, but some parents their kids have desisted. The other mom that runs PITT, her son desisted. So, it happens.
What about the stages of, like kind of like a stages of grief for like just meeting all these parents and seeing all these stories? What are some of the patterns that you've seen in the parents confronting this and dealing with this, like going from naive about the whole situation to more learned? Like what are some of the assumptions that they come in with that then fall away once they learn more about it? Some of the hard lessons that you see that happen over and over again?
Well, it's a good question because there is no right or wrong. There is no good or bad strategy. Some parents, I think you have to, there are some parents whose spouse or partner isn't on the same page with them. And that's, I think, the hardest. Or their other children are going along with it. So it's like the siblings it's the kids against the parents. Mm-hmm. That's pretty horrible because you've lost everybody then. And I know many parents who all their kids have estranged from them. So I don't know how to answer your question actually, because
okay.
I think there are different, like from what I know of the groups, there are different kind of, they settle into different patterns because there are people who want to hear the same thing and argue for the same thing. So like, it's definitely political because like in blue states, like there will be people saying, okay, I need to do activism, and they will go off and they will be very blue in their activism. And that's not the way you're going to go if you're in a red state, or if you have a different emphasis. So there's definitely like a political, it's not like there's a political split. It's not like there are meetings for Democrats and meetings for Republicans, but in terms of activism, you can definitely see people's orientation. And that's, I think, when people come into these groups, like a lot of these parents are from the left and are like, and they turn up and they're like, I can't believe this. I'm a lifelong left-wing voter. And the people who've been in there for like 4 years are like, pick a ticket. Well, explained like we've all been through this. No, that's not to say they're all left of center, but a lot of these parents are left of center. So they're all kind of going through the same cycle of like, surely people will find out about this and they'll be disgusted and they'll know. And then they kind of find out that it's a lot more complicated than that. I don't know, maybe that's changing.
Being on the left would mean that I'm not a bigot, I'm not a bigot. Like being kind of defensive about the transphobia label. But like, no, I was on board with gay rights. I was on board with the whole thing. And surely this is uncensored. Surely everybody else sees that this is a step beyond.
Right. So you can imagine how you would feel if you've been running a group for like 6 years and every 3 weeks you got a new parent and like 60% of them were like, I've always been on the left and I can't believe this is happening and I supported gay rights. And you're like, huh? I've had this, but you have to let them go through that. You have to let them kind of process that, I guess. But that's a very common experience. Like a lot of these parents are historically liberal left and they're shocked and it takes them time when they come into these groups and like, so it's almost like we need a little package. Go on.
But politics is not discussed in these groups at all. On the PITT Substack, we do publish stories where parents talk about this, but we don't talk about it in the groups. I think whatever state you're in, you're an activist to help your state, or I think it's just nobody talks about politics anymore. What I see.
It's different because when we did the Boys Blitz, we were really like conscious of like we don't we don't only want to speak to the Christian right, and we don't want to speak to the feminist left, and we kind of were really balanced. And it's different now. There's more. I think there's more confidence in this idea that actually so few people approve of this, and they're actually, when they understand it, it's that there's more liberty now than just saying, talking honestly about politics with this.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. One aspect that I wanted to bring up that's important with speaking with parents about this, again, so I've focused on detransitioners because that's a first-person story, and I'm more stable in just hearing somebody's first-person story. When we're talking about the trans widow or parents of trans-identifying youth, it's really difficult because you're talking about somebody else, and it's kind of just an unstable kind of interview for me, from my point of view. But when we speak about the parents in large numbers that are dealing with this, what we can start to describe is the nature of trans ideology or gender ideology and its impact on the family. And is it good for families, or is it not good for families? Does it bring families together, or does it do something else? And so what might be...
them up.
It blows them up. So how does it, speaking generally, or if you want to speak about individual cases, how does it damage families?
Well, it damages them because your kid who used to think the world of you all of a sudden thinks you're the enemy. Okay. Because they learn this in school, they learn, no contact, that if your parent doesn't affirm you, they're a bigot, and it ruins your whole relationship with your child. And you think that your love for your kid, and you've always been close, will win out, but it doesn't always win out, because those voices that they're hearing are really, really strong. And you don't always have all your family members. Sometimes I think it's easier for parents who are Republican because their family members might believe them and accept them, and then they have support. A lot of the moms I know who were always Republican, their families were right there for them. And a lot of the people on the left don't have that same support. So in a lot of ways, I've heard people say, "Oh, Republicans are really lucky because you're being accepted." Though I do know some that the families weren't accepting. So, it's really hard because no matter what you do, somebody in your family or friend group is not going to believe you and treat you badly, and your life will never be the same again. Your relationships with those family members and friends will never be the same again. And you have to find new friends, or stay in touch with the support of the family members that do support you. Mm-hmm. And it's hard because you never thought that somebody could come between you and your kid. And that's what's happened.
Hmm.
Like they say, triangulation. You're the enemy, the other people are the hero, and the kid is the victim.
Yeah. There's a clip of Helen Joyce speaking with Peter Boghossian going around. It's a very powerful clip. And she says, she's talking about just how far along we are in, or how far we have to go in this particular culture war issue, because the parents who sign up for this have to be all in for life. If they believe in the concept of the trans child and they transition their child, they have to go all in. They can't have made a mistake. They can't have done irreversible damage to their own children. Psychologically, it'll be very impossible for them to square. There's a lot of shame involved. I mean, socially, they'll be outcast if they change their mind, and just personally, and then facing up to that. On the flip side of that, there are all these parents who have been robbed of their children, and robbed of their families, and felt bereft, and just zeroing in on the depth of the connection between the mother and the son, just for example, the mother and the son, and how a mother loves her son as a son. There's got to be something very special. And we know that there's something very special about that because we have tons of psychological literature about this, right? Like the foundation of psychology itself is boiled down into that very powerful bond between the mother and the son and the mother. And if gender ideology comes in and snips that or turns that, there's got to be an existential level of crisis that happens from the psychological view of the mother who suddenly has a daughter. Like how much reprogramming that has to do, how difficult. I don't see the conversation being had necessarily about how disorienting it is for a mother to lose her son in that way. It's not just a death. It's something else. So I'm wondering, in the stories that you've collected and the support that or the pattern of recognition and reconciliation that mothers are going through on that level, the profound sense of alienation or confusion, and how if they're not on board, then they're not on board. And how do you not be on board with that? How do you deal with that?
Well, it's you mean the parents whose kids have boys, for instance, have medicalized?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
They're completely upset all the time. They're in deep depression, suicidal.
The mothers are suicidal. Why? Why is that so important? I mean, it should be obvious, but I don't think it's being discussed. Like, why is it so important?
Because you're being gaslit. You're being told you raised that child, that child came out of you, and you know what that child is. And you feel like you like having a boy. Like it's so damaging to your psyche. You can't even believe it. It's just goes against your whole nature. It doesn't make sense. It's completely insane. And your instinct as a mother is to protect your child, and you know this isn't protecting your child. So you can't, it's hard to go along with something that doesn't make sense and will not help your child.
And there's also this whole idea that the challenge of the mother with the son is to remove the feminine at the appropriate point, not to be always over the boy, and to allow the boy to go off and take risks, and to remove the feminine influence slowly, and to kind of step back so the boy can go out into the world rather than following him around terrified that he's going to fall over, right? And so you have to encourage, and both parents have to sort of encourage that process. So if society comes, if your kid says, "Oh, I'm actually a girl," it's not I'm actually a girl, and it's what that means to them. Like, because it means nothing. It means like all this stereotypical crap and this stuff they've learned on Reddit and stuff. And it's really undermining that whole process of proudly, as a mother, standing back and allowing the boy to go out into the world as a man. And it's like, and then society comes along and says, no, no, she's a girl and we should protect her. And it's like, no, the whole good mothering is allowing the man to go out into the world. And it's really painful for the woman to do that. Mm-hmm. It's really, really sore for anyone to leave a child go. And so to leave a child go out into the world, which you have to do, and then for the world to say, it's not even you're a woman. It's like, you're a girl. Oh, you're a kitty witty girl. It's so fake and it's so undermining of everything to me. I just think that's part of the grief of these boy parents, is just the flippancy around the whole concept of growing up to be a man. Is like all of these gender therapists and all the rest of it, they just have no regard for that, it seems, at all. They think of it as this really awful, irredeemable thing. That's certainly the impression I got when I spoke to the boys group, that there was definitely a thing going on with these clinics and with some of these activists. It was like, in addition to what the girl parents are going through, it was like even worse, because there was this kind of baseline disregard for young men.
Well, and as a parent of a boy, you also feel responsible for what it's doing to women in society, and that's really hard. And as a parent of a boy, you feel vilified from everyone, because, and even if your kid comes out of it, like I know that the detransitioners, the males, have a much harder time. The boys who are gay, an easier time because they have a community, but the heterosexual boys, they really have it rough because they were the villains. And as a mom of a boy, you're the villain too, or the parent. And I think that's why no one accepts you. No one gets it. Even so, that's what I think is what makes you just want to die, is that you're an outcast. And all you did was, and you love your kid and you want them to not make these mistakes and you want their body to be healthy. Doesn't make any sense. And there's a lot of shame and judgment, that parents go through.
Yeah. And also all the resources accepting what you yourself and those in your cohort of parents have erected. There have been no resources for you. It's like, it's just acceptance or vilification of this. There's no middle ground at all.
Right.
Is it possible for there to be a middle ground? Like I know that Stella O'Malley, Sasha Ayat, and Lisa Marchiano are coming out with a book called What If My Kid's Not Trans? Which is a skeptical or like an open dialogue about this. Is there any space for people to see both sides of the issue? Or do you basically have to either accept it or reject it?
I'm hoping that there's a way for people to see both sides. But it's hard. It's like, you can't get people to believe that trans doesn't exist. Or that there aren't trans kids. I mean, it's just like been put into society that that's a thing, rather than there's people with gender dysphoria and some people feel comfortable transitioning. That's it. But there isn't, like, you're not a trans kid. You're somebody who's having gender issues. And then there's some kids whose parents push it. Mm-hmm. I do know some kids who, from an early on, always thought they were the other sex. So I actually do know a family like that. But that's rare. And having, like what was the study at Brown University says 40% are trans of the kids there. Like, at what point are people going to go, this is a social contagion?
When we get to 100%, then everyone gets $200 and we go again from zero.
Oh, no.
No more gays. We start again. And I'm not doing it wrong this time. I'm only buying yellows upwards. There was something you said and I wanted to add to it. I can't remember. Yeah. I think it has changed in relation to a lot of this stuff. From now we're actually talking about it, having a think about it. I think things, I don't want to say it's better, but there's just a lot more people. So you're not struggling. I mean, 3 years ago, it was like struggling for search terms and even struggling to find a website. And I think that's gone now. But the sad thing, of course, is that's only gone because so many more people have been caught up in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we were just trying with PITT, we were just trying to get the word out and have parents tell their stories because, it's not like, there's a couple outliers. I mean, we almost have 500 stories on PITT. So we're like, how many stories can you deny?
Yeah.
I mean, how many? And that's kind of what we're trying to prove is we exist. This is harmful. This is a medical scandal. And we want people to notice and hear our stories because we're not going away. And the parents are getting more and more active and really trying to do more things to let everyone know that this is not healthy for society. It's not healthy for our kids. It's complete indoctrination in every aspect. And it needs to be stopped because this is a whole generation of kids that are being harmed. And, anybody who's watching this, if you have a story to tell about your kid, please send it to pitt@genspec.org. We want to hear your stories because they're out there.
So part of the trajectory that you're witnessing and that you're a part of is parents going, whoa, what's going on? Dealing with the grief, trying to find answers, right? And then a couple years goes by, and it shakes out one way or the other. The child desists, or the child goes on, or you let go of the child. You lose the child. You keep the child. The child chooses their own destiny. And then the parents, after that, have to do something. Like they want to do something because they've seen the damage that it's done to their own families. They've seen what it's done to their relationship with their child and seen what it's done with their child, and they want to speak out. They want to do something. So what is the lay of the land going forward? Like, what is there to do when a parent decides, okay, this is what it is, but I have to do something about this?
Well, I haven't found that a lot of people who lose their child become activists. I think that they just go on with their life and try. I think a lot of those parents are not activists because they're just trying to sort out their life. A lot of parents write. They send stuff to legislature. They join groups. It's lately there's become a lot of activist groups, which are new, and I'm not sure what they're planning to do, but
what do you mean by activist groups? Is this like lobbyist kind of things, or we're going to organize some speaking tours?
We're all trying to figure it out. Like we're discussing, like, what could we do? Like there's been a couple things brought up, one in Texas, one in Oregon, that if you're going to help transitioners, then you have to help detransitioners, and those both didn't pass, which is insane. And, that's a really great idea, but I think we need to keep working on that. So certain parents in certain states are able to do more than people in blue states because no one's listening. I hate that this has become a left-right issue because it's a child safeguarding issue, and also for young adults. I mean, it's not it needs to be stopped, and we all want to stop it. And I think a lot of us hope that if it can be stopped, our kids will come back. I mean, but there's no guarantee. I do hear from detransitioners that eventually you can only go on so long pretending you're the opposite sex. So at some point, reality does hit you. But, you want to stop it before the medical harm. And,
And
parents.
You talked about that clip with Helen Joyce, and it's like, what are all those parents who affirmed going to do when the kid realizes this is not the right thing to do? The affirmative families. I don't know where that's going to go. I have no idea.
I think if you were an affirmative family, I've heard from detransitioners that their parents didn't know, and they listened to the doctors. The doctor said, this is what you have to do. And they believed the doctors because, we grew up thinking that that doctors knew everything. And
would actually give you good advice, right?
Right. But the parents that actually pushed the transition, I don't know.
Yeah. I was thinking
the
more of them,
3-year-olds.
Yeah. Well, and it's not just the parents. It's also like, I got really interested recently in all of these churches in the Midwest, which are going full scale trans and having yard sales and barbecues with all of these trans flags and trans stuff all over the signage of the church. And it makes sense economically because there's bums on pews, right? They're getting the younger liberals in these states like Minnesota and places like that. What are they going to do? And they've reformulated the whole of their congregation around this idea of, well, we're going to rescue this generation of trans kids by stopping the Republicans. And when it all comes out, it's like, you did this. I don't know what they're going to do. Not everyone can double down. Not everyone has the emotional investment to justify doubling down. Some people are going to want to slink away.
Or they're just going to blame the doctors, who should take a lot of the blame.
Or the professional.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't be the worst outcome.
No, yeah. Josie, have you seen, are there any stories that you've seen of affirmative affirmative to skeptical parents that have kind of switched gears and been able to admit that?
I have.
Yeah, we have published 2 stories like that.
Could you speak to that?
Well, one of them, she did trigonometry podcast, and she tells her story. She's involved with the LGBT Coalition Substack that's publishing stories. And she told her story. She was on Wider Lens as well. Rose is her name. Mm-hmm. She's told her story quite a bit. And that was actually groundbreaking for a lot of people. Because she was a true believer. And she had to walk it all back. And we've had some other, there's some other parents who have contacted GenSpect or contacted me that they want to walk it back and they don't know what to do. And I get them in touch with Rose, and I think they're starting a group.
Okay.
Because they're all in the same boat. And there's also a lot of dads that are coming. The dads are starting to come. Like in our boys group, a lot of dads are showing up. And
what's sparking their arrival on the scene?
I think that they've had enough. And the dads who don't have kids involved are seeing it, and they're like, okay, we've had enough. So we're starting to hear from dads. But, like Jamie Reed said that it was the dads who were trying to stop it in the gender clinic, more so than the moms. So the dads weren't going along with it, which is interesting.
It's got to be
And there's
so
at least
difficult.
one parent I can think of in the original boys group who, without naming her, she definitely affirmed really, really strongly of like 2 weeks. Because she was just like, what the hell is this? And kind of responded with like family pride. And I remember her saying, like, okay, so you're a girl, we're going to make you the best girl that you can be. But that was like that was really a shock reaction. And meanwhile, then she went off and read stuff and then kind of, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of parents who affirm at first, and then, but their gut is telling them something else, and then they walk it back. And you know, Sasha and Stella have discussed this a lot on how to walk it back. So, I think their podcasts and Lisa Marciano, they've been really helpful to parents. I think they've been super helpful in helping a lot of parents figure out what to do. You know, their guidance is really, really great. But it doesn't work for every parent.
Yeah.
And like I said, two people can do the same thing and have completely different results. So every parent whose kid is desisted, everybody's like, well, what'd you do? What'd you do? And like, yeah, everything Stella says, like I'll listen to and I'm like, I did all that. I did that. I did that. And didn't work out. So I wish I had the answers, but none of us do.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that you said earlier, like, is there a middle ground? And I think on the issue of medicalization, I would argue there is a middle ground in one very specific way, which is when kids come out the other side of this, if they've medicalized and then they realize they have quite complicated medical needs. And if they've left the ideology, however many years that takes, and realize this is kind of junk, but they have medicalized, then they have some decisions to make about how to proceed medically. Because if you change your body in this way and you're in this ideological state, you're like, it doesn't matter because otherwise I'll be dead. So I just have to do whatever it is so that I don't commit suicide. And then like 5 years down the line or however many, they're going to realize, okay, so I've got some quite serious medical challenges there. And there I would say we will start to see a center ground because there's going to be a need, a demand for a platform of healthcare providers who can actually cater to these people and tell them this is what you need to do. What is your best, now that you've chosen this, what is your best outcome in terms of all of the things we know about? That'll be where the middle ground comes apart, because one of the reasons I would never say I'm always against all medicalization is like, who am I to tell somebody who's done this and then started taking estrogen, then thought, no, I can't, this is a sham, stopped taking estrogen, and then realized how difficult life is. I don't think we should be opposed to those people re-medicalizing because it's done, man. The damage is done, you know? And that's where you'll start to see, hopefully you'll start to see like some centrist kind of moderate work from people and endocrinologists and support it. Like the point I'm trying to make is I hope it's not like, you're still part of the problem, because these people are going to need serious help, you know, and we don't know when. We don't know the timescale.
Well, I also think that the middle ground could be kids believing they're trans, like it's more like goth, where they don't medicalize. They can play the part and not medicalize. Like I tried to talk my son into that. I'm like, be trans, wear women's clothes. Please don't take the hormones because I'm worried about your health. And he said, well, I'm worried about my health too. And I'm like, and I hear that there are some people who are going along with, I'm trans, but I'm not medicalized. And I'm hoping that could be, you know, the next big thing. So that would be fantastic if that could be pushed, because then it's more like, oh, this is my identity right now, like how goth used to be. And then they get to about 30 or whatever age, and they're like, oh, I got to get a serious job. It's not fun anymore, whatever. It's the medicalization that parents are afraid of. You know, we don't care about anything else but the medicalization, because we know the harm.
Mm-hmm.
And you wouldn't want that on your kid, especially at such a young age and making such a terrible decision. And that's what all of us want to stop, is the medical harm. You know, if your kid wants to wear a dress, and go for it. You know, they all grow their hair.
Problem is, one's led to the other though now, so it's like maybe that was the thing that could have happened. I don't know if it can happen now. Do you know what I mean by that? Like, maybe it's, yeah. I was thinking about it with Lionel Shriver the other day and thinking, you know, I wouldn't, before the medicalization came along, Lionel Shriver changed her name from Margaret at the age of 12 or something. It's like I would have supported that. Now I would be like, red flag, stop the child, because it's then there's the path to medicalization, right? So we have to close the medicalization, and then everything that Josie's talking about becomes a possibility once again.
Right. Well, I think that's why the parents might overreact so much of this whole gender issues with their kids, because they're so afraid of the medicalization. And that's where the parents freak out, and the kids think, oh, you're an old fogey. This is the new thing.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone goes along with it. Wow. And you can't, you just want to stop it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's got to be so difficult, because you have to watch your tone in a state of utmost distress and urgency to stop this from happening. You still have to be calm and not appear reactionary, and be very composed and very far-seeing and very patient at the same time. Inside you're screaming, stop, 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 stop. And, you know, as there's more parents speaking out and there's more resources, so people can be calm and collected. I'm just saying, it's a political issue, and it's a personal issue, and having two sets of emotions and two kind of faces to confront this problem's got to be like, you're just being pulled apart in these two different ways. And it's just got to be so much stress on top of it.
Well, plus you're trying to take care of your own mental health.
Yeah.
So you don't always do and react the right way, because it's hard to just hold it in and pretend it's not happening. I think that's a lot of the problem I had, is my mental health suffered so much, and my son saw it. And it's not good for a kid at that age to see that, because then it doesn't help them. And it doesn't, it sort of turns them off. So if you can be strong and be your old happy self, it does help your kid. But it's really hard to do that when you feel like you feel crazy.
Yeah.
And
also
so
there's
worried.
the whole deadline thing, which we haven't talked about, which is a lot of these kids are 16 or 17. And so 18 is looming. It's like a train coming down the tracks, because at 18, basically they can do what they want, more or less, right? So I think that's also, there's like the crazy 17s, like a lot of the parents go into this really difficult phase when the kid is 17, where they're like, okay, now I have a year. And it's just really unreasonable. It's kind of a tyranny of the soul, you know. It's like this tyrannizes you, you know. But then, I mean, all kids leave, right? So you were going to go through that anyway, but you're just going through it in this really terrifying way. It's like having a kid who says, yeah, I'm definitely going to just, you know, be a prostitute. There's nothing you can say, or some really bad life choice, and there's nothing you can say to me about it.
I'm just going to go off and do heroin. See ya. You know.
In society.
I wonder how many I wonder how many of the boy parents would actually rather the boy was prostitute for a bit. Probably nearly all of them, right? Like,
I don't know. I don't feel that way.
no, that's a terrible
But we'd
choice.
all say, do drugs, have fun, do drugs.
Yeah.
We're okay with that.
Hmm.
I remember my sisters would say to me, because I was the last one to have a kid, and they're like, oh, you want a nerdy kid. They're safe, but not anymore.
Oh, okay.
They don't do drugs. They work hard in school. They blossom later. But that's not happening anymore.
It's
That's
got to
really
be also the other aspect of this is the impact that it has on the mother and the relationship, the marriage. And even if the parents are both on board, there's got to be, it's introducing so much stress that other problems that probably, I can see so many different things coming out. Like it's a gauntlet for a man and a woman to walk through this, like anything, like losing a child or something like that. But this losing a child in this very particular way, in this very complex way, with all these ideas about gender and gender roles, and it calls into question: am I a good father? Am I a good mother? Was I a bad mother? Were you a bad father? Is this your fault? And navigating that, there's got to be an aspect of the support groups. I wonder to what degree, what does that bring up? What have you seen bring up? Could it strengthen? Sometimes it's got to strengthen the relationship. Sometimes it's got to break a relationship.
Yeah, well, I've seen both. I mean, particularly with me, I think it strengthened us. I think when my son turned 18, we were both trying to navigate what to do, and we weren't necessarily on board with what the other person was doing, but we were both kind of doing something. And then once he left, it was like back to how it was when we first dated. It was all there, and we're doing really well. But I know other parents that broke them up. And I know parents who, the mom is affirming, the dad isn't, or the dad is affirming, the mom isn't, or if they're, especially a lot of parents who are divorced, that if the mom is not affirming, the dad will take the affirming side just to get back at the mom.
Yeah.
And it might not necessarily be how they feel, but they get the kid. So it's really terrible when it's a custody battle, because nobody wins.
Oh, wow.
But I guess it just depends on your specific situation, whether it brings you closer or further apart. Hopefully you need each other, and hopefully you and your partner or spouse can work it out. Because if you're alone, if your kid leaves and you're alone, that's terrible. Then you have, I don't know what you have. And there are parents like that, and it's really sad. But hopefully if you have other kids.
And it can test a relationship, and they can get worse and then get better. Do you know? There's quite a few couples who've nearly broken up over it when it all kicked off, or maybe in the 6 months after, or the year after it all kicked off. But then 2 years down the line, they're actually better than they were, But typically, it has to be said, there are counterexamples, but it's typically the classic pattern is dad says it'll blow over.
Yeah.
And the mother feels like she's being cast as the crazy one, as the overreactor, as neurotic, overthinking. I guess that's I can think of exceptions to that. I can think of examples where it's the other way around as well, precisely the other way around. But that's the kind of classic strain that it seems to put on the relationship.
I think it seems that the moms dive in, go down the rabbit hole, read everything, do everything, and the dads just, they don't want to ask for directions. They want to do it their way. And not all dads, but I would say the majority. But they want to stop at 2. They just don't know how. Nobody knows how.
As the dads are showing up, what are they bringing to the table? What are some of the perspectives that dads are bringing to these groups, these conversations?
I think.
I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it's quite fledgling. I'm not totally convinced that there should be a mixed sex campaign space. I kind of think a separate dads endeavor would be really good, because I think a lot of men, frankly, don't want to sit around in meetings where everyone talks about their feelings. Do you know? That is not a thing that all men like. Present company excluded. You obviously love it, and I quite do. But a lot of men don't. And what they want to do is they want to do something really quite practical. So they might just have a particular skill set. And they might just wish to bring that. And it could be really humdrum. So there are dads kind of coming in saying, like, I'll just do data entry. Like, just give me data entry. There's got to be, there's quite a lot of that. It's a lot less kind of ideas about building community and resilience and emotional resources. And it's much more like, I feel like I want to do something. Like, can I get up a ladder and clean? It's that kind of a vibe. And I don't think that we are, I don't think we're anywhere near where we could be in facilitating that. Like,
I think that's a good idea.
There's a huge, like, ocean of energy that you could tap. And I think a lot of these men, like, literally, they're just like, oh, God, I really don't want to go to a 1.5 hour meeting with crying women. Not to put too fine a point on it. And why would they? Right? And so then that energy doesn't go anywhere. And then they get accused of not caring or not being invested. So it would be nice to kind of see a separate men's campaign. I don't know, there isn't a great track record in the gender critical world of separate men's campaigns. So maybe that's something,
Right. Yeah, I mean, I know that they thought because there weren't a lot of dads at the Gen Spec in Killarney, that it meant that the dads aren't there, but they are there. It's just that they have to do it their own way.
Yeah.
Right, and they're almost totally absent from the support. Well, I don't want to say almost totally absent, but they're largely absent from the support communities. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I don't think that should be painted as a failure, because I think, like, you just can't expect men to go as all in for that particular type of way of dealing with this.
Yeah. Well, aside from learning and speaking about it, what is there to be done? What can be done about this? Like, it's very subjective. It's very conversational. It's very based on feelings. If a man isn't inclined to be in that engagement and engaging with other people in that way, like, what can you do? You can't, like, just build a fort and protect kids against gender ideology, right?
That's the thing. So you're kind of allowing the mothers to take the lead in some sense. If you just say, well, hey, we'll just do yeah, that's a good point. I mean, but you can do Billboard Chris stuff, right? Now, not everyone could be Billboard Chris, but I think there is stuff that men could do that's a bit more active if they're prepared to be seen and to come out. It's kind of more male style campaigning, if you like.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah, I take your point. You can't just build a fort. You're right. Yeah.
But a lot of the dads don't fall apart. Like, I fell apart. My husband didn't. So, and I needed his strength when my son left. And that was really helpful, because if we were both like, like both basket cases, we wouldn't have been able to help each other.
Yeah.
And that was actually what I needed at the time, is my husband being the rock and And maybe that's what dads do, is they're not emotional, and they're not crying, they're not getting upset. The women are, and then the dads are there to bring it all together. Because if you both broke down, that would be hard.
Yeah, I brought up like the particular agony of a woman losing a son in this way. Like what goes through a dad's heart to lose a son in this way, and especially in this day and age where, I mean, it's kind of, I don't want to get too political, but it's been kind of, there's been a campaign in popular culture to limit a sense of manliness and like fatherhood. It's kind of like it's bad to impose manliness on your son, like that to toughen a son up is to damage them in some way, because a son should be able to explore their feelings and be sensitive. And so there's not a lot of vocabulary for a man to say, no, you need to man up. Like even that is like, it's kind of been vilified in popular culture. So you're kind of working against the grain in that way. So the man can't even express that, or has been told not to express that, and yet is still going through that loss of like my son is deciding to be a girl. My son is, like my son has decided to pornify women and then live that, maybe in some cases like live like a porn star. Like, what the fuck did I do, or what can I do? There's got to be a lot of anger, rage, and then bottling that up and the particular agony.
Mm-hmm. It's very painful for the dads, and I think it might come out in health problems.
Well, the other thing is, it's like, it's been taboo for decades to say children need fathers. It's been kind of, that's a right-wing talking point now for the whole of my life, to say children need fathers, or are better off with a father in the house. And so now you have like these stories of like these trans-identified males, like that horrible story in the UK where the guy is like, I'm sure you both saw, like simulated breastfeeding with this child, and there are all these women who are rightly like, this is disgraceful, like this is, you can't just replace the mother has to mean something. And I think father has to mean something as well. And yeah, like you say, when every man that's portrayed in adverts is a kind of clown and all the rest of it, it's quite difficult for a father to convey the benefits of that. Because, and the other thing is that the fathers, as soon as they talk about this, are just put in a box called toxic cis-het male, right? So I don't think it helps that we've hollowed out fatherhood so much, and I think that there can't be a way of successfully pushing back which goes along with this and says, well, some families have fathers, others don't. It doesn't really matter. Potato, potato. No, there has to be an assertion that fatherhood matters and that the father's view matters. Because if you don't think fatherhood matters, who cares? Who cares what the dad thinks? Trans, don't trans, right? The father is essentially seen as incidental in our society. So part of it has to be having respect societally for the idea of the father.
Yeah. And if a son is, and I've spoken with very specific detransitioner males where they're not given a path to be a father. A father is just seen, or the man is seen as a toxic representative, emotionally distant, no room for sensitivity, and on top of that, a lustful creature who subjects the woman and controls like this authoritarian. So you have the emasculated father and then the effeminated son, like just caught in a loop, because there's no path for a boy to become a strong man. There's no path for him to become anything other. I mean, it's more appealing to become a trans woman in a way, because you can be sensitive and you can express your sexuality, and it's somehow turned in on itself, but at least you're not oppressing women. You're pressing, I guess you're just expressing your femininity. There's so many different ways. And so.
Yeah, you're just being authentic, so it can't be wrong. It's authentic. Yeah.
But I don't think that it's necessarily the dad that is, the problem. I mean, look at society of the past. The dads weren't even in the picture, and the boys turned out fine. So, generations and generations ago, the dads, they didn't change diapers, they didn't walk the kids, they came home, they're like,
To me,
kids go play over there.
It's not so much about the involvement of the dad, it's more about the portrayal of dads, across society. It's like the whole concept of the dad is like so incidental at this point. Because you're right.
Maybe
there was.
I just think maybe there's not strong in society that that the boys can look at as role models. They're always the villain, the bad dad, in society, movies and television. There's not a lot of good role models where this is a great guy. Some, but not generally. So I think that's more the issue than the dad maybe in the household. Because, a lot of, my son is a clone of my husband. And I know a lot of parents whose sons are just like the dad. So it's more of the kid trying to not be the dad or whatever. Because, I didn't want to be like my mom, but then when I was around 30, I wished I had. You just want to be different than what you see. You look in the mirror and go, I don't want to be like my dad. Because when you're a teenager, that doesn't sound appealing. But later you're like, oh, well, my dad's a really good guy. Why wouldn't I have wanted to be like him? I think, you're just trying to leave the family, and that's the easiest way, is maybe to like, okay, I'm just going to be completely different. I'll just be a girl instead.
It's always interesting that it's just being a girl. And then when they talk about themselves online, it's like, somebody misgendered me, they just think I'm a man. It's like, what is this just? It's so ridiculous. I've been spending loads of time on FTM Reddit. The Reddit for the FTMs. It's terrifying. It's terrifying.
What are you seeing?
It's literally like, sorry, sci-fi reference. Do you remember the scene in Aliens where Sigourney Weaver is trapped in the room with the plexiglass and the little girl and the alien bug face thing with acid, and they're banging on the plexiglass and nobody can hear them because it's soundproof, and everyone's just like, tra la 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 la, and they're about to get killed. And it's like that. Because there's all these girls coming along with literal, just like, if you had to explain the concept of cry for help psychologically to a child, you would write the words they've written. They're just coming with cry for help. I think I'm about to do the wrong thing. I don't think I'm trans, but I think I might just do it anyway. And anyone who responds with anything other than you're trans is just immediately deleted. So it's like a theater of cruelty. Like, you're seeing these people coming and literally doing cry for help. And the whole thing is constructed around the idea that you cannot say anything to these kids other than it just doesn't matter. And it's so abusive. And it's particularly abusive. Like, it just happens. I've been looking at FTM, which is kind of counter to, like, normally I would be more interested in the boys, but I've just got interested in it the last few days, just that site. And it's like, it's so female the way they take one another apart. Because, like, one will be like, well, I'm thinking of stopping testosterone, and somebody will come in and be like, well, are you sure? Because, like, your face will look less masculine, and, like, you're kind of short. And it's so evil, like, bitchy high school girl controlling stuff. And like I say, it's like, nobody can do anything. No parent can do anything. Not with that. I don't know what the answer to that is, because they literally just delete you if you answer. Do you know? So it's really, after a while, you have to stop, because it's like, it stops. Like, there's kind of funny, like, things that you can notice, like these girls in a very girly way obsessing about what decor makes them look masculine or what clothing makes them, and it's very girly and it's kind of funny, but then it stops being funny because you get the medical questions and you see they're just being conveyor belted into further damage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even if they're saying this is damaging, I'm not sure about this. Has anyone else had these complications? And it's just push, push, push. And it's like, honestly, it's like 100% affirming, because at least in that subreddit, you cannot say anything which goes against it. And I imagine that a lot of the same is going on with the lads, to be honest, if not worse, because probably all of those Reddit moderators are men. So they'll be even more ban hammer happy to, get rid of the people who are trying to question it. So I don't know what we do about that, apart from ban Reddit.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there's either an authoritarian solution or a libertarian solution. Let it shake out, or stamp it out entirely. And and there's trade-offs to that. But that's why PITT and parent associations, like raising awareness, telling these stories, and just stacking up anecdote until like data crushes, until truth shines through, and being a part of that, and having to lose your child to this illusion, deal with the grief of that, the anger of that, and just providing support must be humbling.
It's odd.
That's not easy.
Through this. It's strange because we've known one another so long, and it's very different now. I think it's better, but there's still, like, it's not resolved, and it's not better for individuals. Like, I think it's politically easier, and the climate's a bit easier, but it's like, who cares? Like, if you've lost your child, you're like, oh, I don't care about the climate, but it's worth saying that there isn't the thing of it taking 3 months to find somebody anymore. But, it's not much of a conflict.
No, people are finding stuff right away.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. And they can they have an easier shot at getting their kid out of it because they know what to do. They don't overreact because they've heard about it. And then the kid does, they know what to do rather than completely melt down like what I did. So that's a good thing. And hopefully, we are hearing more and more desisting stories. Especially if your kid's younger, you have a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's a lot of sources out there to help. But if your kid is 17 or 18, or they go off to college and then they tell you there's nothing you can do. And there's a lot of pain there. And universities are
You can look after yourself, though. There is something you can do. You can look after yourself, I know it's kind of a bit like, yeah, pretty much. But, so many of these kids are going to drop out of it, right? We just don't know when. And you're no good to them if you're not there, because, I know you know this, but like it's one of the things, because I imagine it is so devastating that you have to think, okay, I have to make peace with this. He's gone into Genderland for the next, I don't know. And it could be a year and it could be a decade. And so I just have to be here as the stable presence that I ever was when he comes back.
And just, right. And find the positives in your life. And I mean, doing PITT helps me because it gets me out of bed every day. I have something to do. Besides my job, but it helps to know that you're maybe helping other people and maybe making a difference. I can hold on to that. But I mean, I really do think things are changing. Like, for instance, with my husband, his friends are seeing it. And they say we didn't tell them, but they all of a sudden start talking about it. So, which is a really great sign. You know, we didn't come to them and tell them. They said, "What's going on?" And then, you know, I read the story, and so they're questioning it. You know, our friends are questioning it, which didn't happen before.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
In California, worth pointing out. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So what's on what's coming up for PITT? So you guys have this collection of stories. What's it called? And it's going to be out next month, you said?
Yeah. It comes out August 14th. And it's, what is the title? I have it.
It's Parents with Inconvenient Truths About Trans, but the subtitle is Tales from the Home Front in the Fight to Save Our Kids, but it's Parents with Inconvenient Truths About Trans. So hopefully people will use search term PITT. I would encourage people to use the search term PITT so we can bump it, you know?
True.
So what's the, I guess, what does PITT offer? Like if people look it up and find it, what are you guys offering?
We're offering truth, and we're offering parents' stories firsthand rather than what journalists might surmise, because they don't always tell every detail. So this is coming from the parents' point of view and what happened to them. And it can be really sad. There's a lot of really sad stories, but there are some hope stories and desistance stories and antidotes. But the parents seem to like it because there's a lot of comments every single day, and a lot of people say it saves them. You know, helps them get every day they read it, and you know, it just validates that there's nothing wrong with them, that this is happening. And I think every story you hear, it helps you realize, okay, there's a lot of people going through this. And the numbers in the parent groups, you can also tell. I mean, there's 550 families of boys in just our group. I know on our duty there's 2,000. I don't know how many are in parents of
so the other boys group in probably.
Oh, I was combining like the
300.
two. Yeah, I was combining the two.
Okay. Yeah, it must be tens of thousands now across the world, or at least 10,000. It must be. There's a lot of dormant people as well. There's a lot of, you wouldn't want to call them dormant, but like there's a lot of people who are passively, you know, they don't say anything, they don't write anything, they just read, they attend meetings, they don't put the camera on, they don't speak, they just absorb, and they're getting a lot from that. So, you know, for every one person creating, there's 9 people kind of being helped by it and being absorbed by it. I think the other good thing to say about PITT is there was never any editorial decision of like, okay, we have to be this or that, so that you'll get people writing, not often, but there are people who write from a religious perspective, and then there'll be people who write from a non-religious perspective. So it's actually genuine. It's not fake. It's not curated. It's not like, oh, we want to give people the impression that we're this or we're that, so we can get on this TV show or that TV show. It's come all. If you're a conservative parent, you want to write about that experience, you can. If you're a liberal parent, you want to write about that. Some parents who are gay in same-sex relationships, there are, you know, all these kind of different things. And so it's genuine. It's not like some kind of hand-picked panel of people to prove some point, you know?
Yeah, we've worked really hard to maintain that we're not political, and we're not religious or non-religious. We're secular.
Mm-hmm. And is there, and it's not even necessarily political. You guys don't have a political agenda. It's just a support group and an information like warehouse or crossroads of people just sharing stories, right? And then they go through that onto other other organizations have more political orientations or more, they're trying to litigate something or do other things. This is, you guys are just storytelling, human stories centric.
And it's not necessarily a support group, though some of the comment sort of use it as that. But it's really helpful to parents to tell their story. I know they all tell me afterwards that it really took a lot off their chest to have their story out in the universe, and it really changed. It helped them so much. There's nothing like writing to help you get the emotions out, and once it's out there, the parents say, "Oh, I can't believe how much that helped me."
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's because as well, when you're dealing with like turmoil in your mind, writing is commitment. You commit to a particular version of events. And even if you don't feel like that a week later, it's like, at least I memorialized it. That feeling was real. Mm-hmm. And I put it in one place, and now it exists in the world and people can see it. We're not, like, for GenSpec's part, it's not political. I'm prepared to be quite political as a person, but it's not a GenSpec position. But my personal position is, if you're still voting Democrat, you're a moron. But that's not a GenSpec position, which is a me position.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can see the other point of view.
Yeah.
Sorry?
No, well, thanks for committing that to film, Alasdair.
What, me saying if you still voted Democrat, you're more... Well, I'd argue that point, to be honest. I don't know. I get it, because then people will say, well, who should I vote for? And I don't know. Yeah, I shouldn't be flip.
But everybody has a right to their opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the book's coming up, and people can find this resource and stuff. What other things have helped you, Josie, in this whole gender journey, by proxy of yours? Other resources, other speakers, other books?
Just meeting other parents.
Yeah.
That has helped tremendously. Going to the GenSpec conference was really amazing. Just to meet in person the other parents. And, you felt so comfortable being in a room where everybody is in agreement. It was amazing. Well, besides writing and trying to get the word out and meet with other parents, and we've done a lot of work around trying to get a boys study. We're always, as with the boy group, we meet with people all the time. Like, we have more than just getting the word out. We also want to try and get a boys study, so that we get the truth out, because everyone always talks about the ROGD girls, and there's nothing being said about the boys. And, some people from the past who researched, like AGP, look at it like this new cohort are the same way, but the boys are getting indoctrinated just the same way the girls are. And so it's like, we'd like a definitive study on this, rather than just saying, oh, it's the boys are just all have a fetish, and just throw them out, and only worry about the girls. That's how we sort of feel. And we'd like, because we know that it's a social contagion for the boys as well. Like, they don't decide, oh, I want to dress in mommy's clothes first. They feel bad about themselves. There's this new answer, and just like the girls. and we want a more definitive study. So that's what we're working on. We have groups that do that kind of research. And I would say that mostly parents of boys write for PITT.
Yeah.
And I would say 65% are boy parents. It's interesting. I don't know why, but I get more stories from parents of boys.
A lot of that, I mean, some of that could be like a legacy effect from just the way we started, maybe. Do you see what I mean?
I think the parents of boys are more troubled. Because the kid, like I think if you have a girl, they can kind of mix into society a lot easier.
If what you've now, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying if parents of girls think that, they're wrong. But it may be something that they can think at the beginning, yeah, but I don't know that they're all going to think that in 10 years' time. I don't think it's going to be easy for any of these kids, boys or girls.
Well, I'm just saying the girls aren't vilified in society. The boys are. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
And with the ROGD point, like there's very clearly social influence and there's very clearly common factors, like even down to things like eating disorder comorbidity, where you're like, okay, we're talking metadata here. We don't need to, this doesn't need to devolve into a spat about who's denying the existence of what problem. If there's metadata suggesting a correlation with comorbidity and eating disorder, that's there, right? So one of the things is to find the boundaries of, where is this sexual for both the boys and the girls? And then what are we talking about with ROGD and what are the influences on them sexually and non-sexually for both the boys and the girls? And I think we're a long way off having some of those questions answered, but it would be really good to have the same team. And this is one of the things that came out of Kalani, is to have the same kind of expert eye cast over the boys as has been cast over the girls. So we can find out and we can say. And if the answer to that is actually, no, there isn't. It's too different. So there's no such thing as ROGD for boys. I don't think it's going to be the answer as it happens. But if it is, then it is. And then it's like we can look, Yeah.
Yeah. Rephrase the question.
Rephrase the question. Josie, how do you feel about this coming out soon?
I'm excited. I'm hoping it makes a difference. I'm hoping that people will recognize it as something that needs to be discussed and looked at.
Yeah. Are you gonna order? Are you gonna send it out to politicians and people like that in bulk?
Well, we've had a lot of journalists write about it.
And by it means the book, this collection of stories.
Yeah.
By parents for parents.
This is what it's done by not being gatekept and by not being behind a sort of like it's not presented by a religious group, it's not presented by conservatives, it's just here it is. So it's easier for journalists. They don't have to navigate all that, nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I've had a lot of journalists write me, and they've done articles on it already. They've taken excerpts out and published. So Quillette did, the Australian did, Bernard Lane did. And I've had other people reach out to me and say that they're going to do something. So hopefully it'll get some traction.
Well, it's been on my channel, so there we go. Doing my part.
Thank you.
You are very much doing your part.
We appreciate the
you
part.
You have earned your gold stars from the gender critical mothers.
Oh, yeah.
And fathers.
Yeah.
And fathers.
These stories are very important, and I'm glad that you guys are putting them out there and it's such a risk. I mean, and yeah, so such a risk. But it'll be a cumulative gain. As the word gets out, the more word will get out, and more people will speak up, and more people will be talking about it, and more people will be aware of it, and then the downstream effect will be the political change and whatever happens with the medicalization and stuff. But getting that ball rolling.
Well, we owe it a lot to Alasdair because he gave the parents, mostly moms, courage to write. And the support from him really helped get us motivated and moving. And so we appreciate that. I don't think it would have happened without Alasdair.
I wouldn't change any of it at all for the world. So
you get a gold star too.
Good. I deserve a gold star.
You do. At least one. Well, let's wrap up the recording. Let's land this plane. Thank you very much for all your work, Josie, and for risking it all by coming on my channel. You're going to have to give me something to put on your side of the screen, so we're not just looking at the void or into each other's eyes, myself and Alasdair. And thanks a lot for returning, Alasdair. It's always great to have you on.
Well, thanks for giving PITT a platform.
Absolutely. And links to it will be in the description, just for anybody who's wondering that.